Hi everyone, this is Long Vo. Today is June the 26th, 2012. I'm analyzing one of my games in the Burlington Chess Club. I'm playing black and currently rated 1498, and my opponent is Louis Saka, playing white, rated 1701. So my opponent plays knight to f3, and usually when there's a opening like that, I play d5 since my opponent is controlling this square and this square, so I think to me it makes sense to take control of the center with the white square, which is not covered by the knight. So immediately my opponent plays c4, challenging the center, and right now I don't feel like taking the pawn because my opponent would still have both of his center pawns and I would still have a hard time defending, right? So I would be down a center pawn. So I play knight to f6, developing the knight and defending the d pawn. So my opponent plays b3. At this point I'm wondering to myself, my opponent is playing a lot of pawn moves, so I should take advantage of that and keep developing. So I go bishop to f5. Looking back, I think I should have gone bishop to g4 instead, putting pressure on the knight, but that's the move that I chose. Perhaps just controlling more of the center. My opponent goes b2, developing his bishop in the long diagonal, and I keep developing. So knight to c6. So with the idea of perhaps later on pushing this pawn up, or and then continuing to develop, or even maybe take more of the center. So my opponent plays d3, and at this point I'm pretty happy that he keeps making these pawn moves, and he's really blocking off his light square bishop here. But he's thinking of a little trap here that I didn't know about. So I keep developing, opening the diagonal for my bishop by playing e5. So here comes the trap. So the reason why he played d3 was really to support this square here. So he goes c takes d, and I didn't realize that once I take back with knight to takes d5, then he could fork the bishop and the knight with e4. So at this point I'm thinking to myself, I'm in big trouble, the game's probably over. Anyways, I didn't want to surrender yet, so I, who knows, right? So I go bishop to b4, keeping my development, check, and he goes knight to d2, blocking it. So now there's nothing else I can do. I know that one of my pieces is going to be lost, so I just I go knight to f4, threatening the d pawn here because the queen is also attacking. But I could have also gone perhaps knight to c3, attacking the queen, but then I thought obviously the only move that she has is c1, and then I could retreat the bishop or something, but then the knight is still hanging, right? So you can just take, so I didn't really see a point there. So I chose knight to oh yes, I could have okay, sorry. So I could have gone the knight to c3, attacking the queen, and if she moves here, then I could have taken this pawn, e4, and if he takes back, then I take back. So then it's not too bad. So I really messed up his center here, and but then this e pawn is still hanging now, right? So he could perhaps take back. So I guess if I exchanged it here, you know, that could have been another variation, but the move that I chose was f4, and then he so e takes f5 and knight takes d3, check, and then bishop takes d3 and queen takes d3. So now this is, I thought, was, you know, putting a lot of pressure towards his king side, preventing him from castling, and that was my goal, to really prevent him from castling at this point and do my best to exert a lot of pressure. So then he goes queen to e2. So at this point he's leading by a piece, and I think it makes sense for him to start forcing some exchanges. I didn't want to take with the queen because, well, that would prevent him from castling, but if the queens are off the board, he's not in real danger, and you know, his rooks are connected and they're easily developed. So and I would simply lose some temples there. Okay, so I thought to myself, I guess I should keep developing and let him take my queen. So I go, I castle long towards the queen side, and my rook gets developed. So I finish development and the rook is supporting the queen. So once he takes, queen takes d3, then rook takes d3, and I didn't lose any development, but he is now able to castle. So he castles long, which kind of surprised me because I thought that there's an open file here, semi-open file, and his king is not very well protected. Anyways, he did that to save some tempo as well, to protect the knight. So I went rook to d8, putting more pressure. So at this point I could take, and then if he takes back, I take, and then he takes. And I would think that perhaps I would try to you know, distract the knight here to have one less defender, so I could capture the knight. So then the knight goes to c4 with the idea of exchanging as well. So same thing, I didn't want to take with my rook, because if he takes and then, you know, I'm the one wasting my temples here. So I thought to myself, let's protect the undefended pawn here, because now there's 3 attackers on it. But obviously if a pawn is defending it, then he's not going to exchange a knight for the pawn, and let him exchange with the rook. So rook takes d3, and rook takes d3, and I still maintain control of the d file. So now he wants to exchange some more, so rook to d1, and same thing, I didn't want to take, then his king takes back, and then I'm the one losing temple. So I decided to advance the pawn to e4, and if he takes, then my pawn would take and, you know, be one step closer to queening. But at this point, because I'm down a piece, I'm thinking to myself, how am I gonna protect this pawn afterwards, right? So rook takes d3, e takes d3, and he kicks away my bishop with a3. So the bishop goes back to c5, attacking the f pawn, and so his king goes to d2, attacking my pawn, and there's no way for me to defend it. So bishop takes f2, and at this point, you he's a strong player, so I think he wanted to exchange the bishop, so he goes knight to e3, blocking off my bishop with the idea of perhaps attacking it with the king after he takes my pawn. So now I'm pretty desperate. So you know what? I have 3 pawns on this side, and he has 2 pawns. So let's try to create a pawn here that can queen. I forget the term here. A pass pawn. Yeah. So I decided to try to create a pass pawn. So anyways, he takes. So king takes d3, and I keep pushing a5 with the idea of perhaps moving my knight somewhere later, and then if I have 3 pawns here, then for sure there's a way of creating a pass pawn, but then I'm still down a piece, so I don't know how I can win this game. So anyway, he goes king to e2, attacking the bishop, so I have no choice. Bishop can't really go anywhere, so bishop takes e3, king takes e3. Now I decide to centralize my king, because without the king supporting the pawns, there's no way to queen. So king to d7, and then he starts pushing his pawns. So g4. So knight to e7. Not really to attack anything, but the idea is to push my pawns. And I think here, if I was a better player, I would notice that there's also a check, a potential check here. So anyways, I didn't really pay attention to that, and he goes knight to d4, attacking the b pawn. So I go c6, defending, and then he goes knight to e6 with a great outpost and attacking my g pawn. So there's nothing I can do to defend that pawn. The only thing I can do is g6, and then the f pawn would be hanging. But I didn't pay attention to the potential check here. So when bishop takes f6, I should have gone knight to d5, and that would have given me a great chance to draw. Anyways, I didn't see it, and I went g takes f, and then he knew that he blundered, and so anyways, right now that was his chance to exchange some more. So bishop takes e7, and I had the choice between taking back with the king, but then he would simply take this pawn, and then I don't know how I would really defend this pass pawn, right? And he has his king so close. So I decided to take the knight instead. So king takes e6, defending my pawn. So if he takes and I take, then I would be up a pawn. So then he goes bishop to d8, attacking my a pawn. And at this point, I could have gone here, but then if he takes, then I'm pretty far away from these guys here, and then he would simply take back, and then it's still really tough for me to do anything. So I decided to take with f takes g, and thinking perhaps I could somehow defend. But his king is way too close to those pawns, so he goes king to f4, and then I decide to push a4, because even if I even if I go h5, then he would simply go king to g 5, attacking the h pawn, and then I'm still lost, I think. But anyways, the move I chose was a4, and he has no choice but to either, well, he could keep it closed, either advance, but then I would simply advance this pawn and then create my pass pawn this way. So he decided to take. So B takes A, B takes A, and then king takes G. So I still have my pass pawn right here. So I decide to go king to D5, and then he goes king to G5 and C5, king to H6, C4, king takes H7, C3, then he starts pushing H4. So once my pawn was cleared, the next idea was to capture the A pawn, and then I would have two pass pawns. So I go king to C4, then he goes king to G6, getting out of the H pawn's way. So I go king to B3, threatening the A pawn. He goes H5 instead of defending. So king to takes A3, H6, C2. So he goes bishop to G5, defending the C1 square. So I go king to B2, and he goes H7. So at this point, you know, it's pretty much over, but I thought somehow that if I queened, then he would take, and then I would take, and then he would queen, and then, you know, it's still over regardless. So if I go here, he probably go something like this, or I don't know. If I go here, he would simply start checking, or so if I get away from the pawn, then I'm cut off and there's no way to defend it. And if I go in front of the pawn, you know, it's just a matter of time, right? And then there's no way for me to really get out of the pawn's way. So no matter what, it's hopeless for me. But he didn't take, and he queened with a check, which was, you know, a good move as well. And I blocked with queen to C3, and then he pinned the queen with bishop to F6. So queen takes F6, queen takes F6, check, and same thing. So I think I should have gone up here, but I don't know, he could have done a series of check, trying to separate my king from my pawn here, and then there was really no way for me to get out of the pawn's way. So, you know, so that would have been over. So anyways, I resigned. So once he took, I went king to B1, and then he went queen to C3, blocking off the pawn here from making any progress, and there was no way for my king to really defend it. So I just resigned, and you know, that was a mistake that I made early in the game, and I also missed the this opportunity right here. And you know, there's a lot of pressure when you're playing, and I should have taken a little bit more time here, because I wasn't really short on time. I still had an hour, so that's the way it is. And I hope you guys learned something from this game. Thank you.